really do something about that cold, Manners.
Yeah.
Looks like we got a live one.
You all right, buddy? It's a demon. It's a horrible demon.
Well, the project that became the NECRO Files started in late 1995, early 1996. I was living in Hollywood at the time, and I had just finished 2 movies on 16 millimeter, Back from Hell and Legion of the Night, that were both pretty successful. So I wanted to jump right into another movie, and I wanted to do something, that could be done cheaply. At the time, there was kind of this trend of movies being shot on video, low-budget movies shot on video, and this is because by the mid-90s, video technology was starting to improve. They had like the film look process, things of this nature, that video started to look a little more sellable. So I wanted to try something like that. So we thought it would be an experiment to shoot something on video. So I approached the guy who had put up most of the money for Legion of the Night, and this is a chap named Todd Shersland, and he had a script that he had written called Psycho Zombie Love Butcher, which was actually based on a comic strip written by my friend Matt Hundley, who was the effects guy on my first 2 pictures. He wrote this comic strip called Zombie Love Butcher, which was about a zombie that rises up from a toxic waste dump next door to a sorority house, and lots of sleazy horror ensues. So Todd Shersland had turned this into a screenplay, and I read this thing and it was a mess. It looked like this would have cost like $1 billion. It had, giant demons and things like that. So I figured, it'd be easier to get him to put up the money if I based a movie around a script that he had written. So I basically took his script and rewrote it, and took the giant demon monster and kind of got rid of that and replaced it with a floating baby demon, which would be way smaller and cheaper. So I wrote the shooting script and went back to Olympia, and we started production. This would be early '96. We started casting the film. We placed an ad in The Stranger, which is sort of an alternative newspaper in Seattle. And a lot of people showed up. We had some talented actors show up for auditions. And a lot of people, though, would immediately want nothing to do with the film after reading a few lines, just because of, the crass nature of the dialogue and stuff.
I heard the only chick he didn't kill got pregnant.
Well, let's hope she wises up and aborts the little bastard before it's too late.
A lot of people stormed out of the auditions, I recall. We ended up, one guy, Steve Shepard, who was cast as Manners, Detective Manners, had some experience. He was an extra in a few Hollywood movies. He was an extra, I believe, in Sudden Impact, the Dirty Harry movie, which was pretty impressive to us. He was also lead singer of a punk band back in the 70s called the Child Prostitutes. I guess every show they played ended in a fist fight, was his claim to fame. So we had him cast, and then Gary Browning, who plays Sloan, showed up one day, and his line reading was so bizarre.
What the hell's going on, Manners?
Huh?
What are you doing?
And the guy's weird. You get something like that, you got to go with it. So we cast him. Other people were cast, largely from people we knew around Olympia. There's a number of models in the movie. We put it that answered the ad in The Stranger, and I think a lot of them were dancers at this place called The Lusty Lady. That was it. So we could fill it up with some beautiful faces. And for the zombie, originally I think we had talked to a guy named Keith Bearden, I believe was his name. He was one of the writers for Fangoria, and at the last minute backed out of the project. So this kid that was kind of renting a room in the house we were in, his name was Isaac Cooper. He didn't have a job, so he became the zombie because he had nothing better to do. So we started shooting the movie. I believe it was on my birthday, April 8th, 1996, we started shooting. And a lot of the stuff we shot right in the house we lived in. I think that doubled as numerous locations. It's the house that the two cops show up to at the beginning of the movie. We had a relatively long shooting schedule. I think it was 3 weeks, which would probably be considered pretty luxurious by a lot of kids today shooting low-budget movies on video. And I remember I brought with me from Hollywood a bunch of colored gels. Our lighting equipment consisted basically of like 2 clamp-on garage lights, but we had these colored gels, so the movie has kind of a colorful look about it. And we also got, from my friend Scooter, who was a gaffer in Hollywood, this sort of thick tinfoil shimmery thing you shake, you bounce light off of it, and you sort of shake it, and it reflects the light and creates this kind of shimmery thing. This is how they do it in Hollywood for, say, light, shimmering off of water, or in our case, it was supposed to be a fireplace. There's a scene where the zombie is outside. There's some like S&M thing going on, and the zombie gets a giant erection outside. And this scene we shot 3 separate times, I remember, just to get this scene right, because the lighting, it was very difficult to light outside. We shot in a graveyard, and we were about 80% done with the scene, and the caretaker of the graveyard, this was in Tumwater, Washington, the caretaker rode up on his riding lawnmower and told us we had to leave. He kicked us out. So we still had some to shoot. So what we did was Isaac kind of went over, took the guy aside, and kind of talked him silly. The guy's like, "You guys have to get out of here." So he's like, "Well, you mean so we can get out of here, then we can come back? Like in half an hour, we can come back?" He's like, "No, you can't come back. You have to get out of here." And so Isaac's like, "So you mean you want us to move like over there to the other section of the cemetery?" The guy's like, "No, you have to get out of here. You guys can't be here." And Isaac's like, So what you're saying is it's okay for now, but like next time we can't come back? Just talking to the guy silly just to like waste his time for like a half an hour, while we finish shooting. So they're over there arguing for half an hour. We get the shots we need and we get out of there. There's a scene where Isaac as the zombie with his huge member is walking down 4th Avenue. Rush hour traffic. There was even a cop car right there. Rush hour traffic, downtown Olympia on 4th Avenue. Walking down the street, I wanted to get the shot real quick, so we just set it up and got it real quick, and miraculously, nobody noticed the zombie with the 3-foot dick walking down the sidewalk for about 2 blocks. The satanic lair that they use, that you see a couple of times in the movie, was a storage space that we had rented and just doctored up with black sheets everywhere. But we had these paintings hanging in there that we had purchased from 666 Hollywood Boulevard, which was a store in Hollywood that was just opened by Anton LaVey's daughters. And they were selling a bunch of stuff from Anton LaVey's Church of Satan mansion in San Francisco, including this painting of himself, which was painted by one of his disciples. And supposedly the brown in the painting was Anton LaVey's blood. This is what we were told. But this actually hanged in the Church of Satan for decades, and we were able to buy it, and now it's in the NECRO files as part of that set. The floating demon baby. Everybody loves the demon baby. That was, as I said originally, in Todd Cherslin's script was a giant, like, 8 foot tall tentacle demon, something that you would see in some anime, like a Yurosugi Doji with the tentacle demon, something along those lines. There's no way in hell we could have pulled that off. So, I came up with the idea, well, let's just do like a floating, baby. It's real small, it'd be cheap. We could just go to Toys R Us, buy a couple of baby dolls. So that's what we did. We bought, it was like the deluxe Betsy Wetsy or something. And there was 2 different versions of it with 2 different facial expressions. So we bought both of those and doctored them both up. So I don't know if it reads in the film, but there's a couple of moments where you see the baby, it's got a certain facial expression, cuts to another actor, cuts back to the baby, and the baby's got a different facial expression. So at least it's got a little bit of expression going on. Other than that, it has nothing except, a creepy voice, which I did in Galen Seneglese's garage, and the fishing pole. Actually, we got in trouble. There's a scene where the baby's flying around. I was sitting in the back seat with the camera. Isaac was in the front seat with a fishing pole and the baby dangling out the window in front of me, so I could get a shot, a sort of a dolly shot of the baby flying, with the background, the houses and trees going by. So we're going down this dirt road, and with this, dead baby hanging out the window, and a pickup truck with some people pulled up next to us, and they thought we were probably making some sort of abortion statement, like some anti-abortion, people making a statement about it and driving around the neighborhoods. So they were kind of upset about that, but I suppose it was odd looking, an odd looking sight. This is on the same street. There's a scene where Isaac is dancing in this sort of valley with the blow up love doll. I call it my Sound of Music shot. It's like, it's a spinning shot. The camera is like kind of speeding down the road and zooming in as Isaac's, twirling around in the field. And as we're setting up, Isaac's kind of out in this field, and the road kind of circles around the field, and Isaac's out there just kind of dancing nonstop with this doll, while I'm fixing my focus and stuff. And cars are driving by, and it's pretty, impossible to miss the zombie dancing around in the field with the blow-up love doll. And a lot of people stopped, and screamed out at him, like, one guy, is that a blow-up fuck doll? To do the sound mix, we actually had to call around. We got a hold of a guy in Los Angeles named Galen Seneglese. Galen Seneglese was Roger Waters' personal assistant on The Wall, on Pink Floyd The Wall. And he had set up a recording studio in his garage, but he could also do film mixing. And behind his console, he had photographs of himself, sitting behind consoles or sitting behind mixing boards with John Lennon, people like that. So this guy was pretty accomplished, but his garage studio was brand new, so he wanted, to get a project in there. So we managed to cut a deal with him, and he did the sound mix for relatively cheap. We finished the film, and there was a premiere. We did a premiere, which I didn't attend, but it was at a bar in Hollywood. And it was sponsored by Hollywood Book and Poster. Hollywood Book and Poster sponsored the premiere of the Necrophiles in Hollywood. And it was at this bar, I guess, with I wasn't there, but Todd Cherzlin and Isaac Cooper were both there. It's 2 sides. They were doing in one side they were doing female mud wrestling or something weird, I don't know. And the other room was the premiere of the Necrophiles. I guess that place was packed. And this would have been 1990, late 97 or early 98 that this premiered, and Chris Farley showed up. Chris Farley showed up with 2 blonde girls, and he was drunk off his ass, and he was like, "I just fell off the wagon!" I guess Chris Farley had just gotten out of rehab and had fallen off the wagon. He had cookies and candy bars falling out of his pockets. So Isaac grabbed a bunch of the cookies and candy bars and brought those home to me because I wasn't able to attend the premiere. But Chris Farley, watched the movie and announced to everybody that it was the most fucked up movie he'd ever seen. So we have that on the back of the initial VHS release. That was a pretty good quote. But then Chris Farley died very shortly thereafter and continued to drink throughout the premiere of the movie, and then went off and drank some more. So I don't know if the Necrophiles contributed to the untimely death of Chris Farley, but it's entirely possible. And so the movie was done, and the first thing we did was send screeners around to all these magazines. At the time, there was a big underground of horror. I think it was sort of the start of it. I think that, I mean, there certainly is now, but this was kind of the beginning of it, was about that time in the mid-90s. There was these magazines like Scream, Psychotronic, Alternative Cinema, Draculina, Shock Cinema, Cult Movies, of course the bigger ones, Fangoria. So we sent, screeners out and ended up getting reviewed in every magazine. Lots of magazines, and very overwhelmingly positive. It was, people seemed to really like the movie. Probably the biggest exposure we had right off the bat was my dad called me. My dad had a subscription to Playboy, and he called me to tell me that my movie had a write-up in Playboy magazine. It was, Hannibal was coming out, and so they did a list, in the meantime, as you're waiting for Hannibal, these are our top 10 favorite cannibal movies. And the Necrophiles was in their top 10 favorite cannibal movies, right in between Eating Raoul and Motel Hell.
Mira, 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 salió. Y mira, por donde pecas pagas. Mira, ese era el violador que ahora está completamente muerto y ha sido resucitado como zombie. Mira, mira, se la sacó. Y la puñalada de carne, la propia venganza, y lo va a matar con su mismo nepe. Mira, mira, se lo enterró.
Recently, the movie opened and closed a pretty large film festival called the Lost Gems Film Festival. It's like Iowa or Idaho, but it's a large film festival. The Necrophiles played the first day and the last day, opened and closed the festival. And then the Sci-Fi Center in Las Vegas requested a screening. At the time, we thought this was going to be Star Wars. We were putting so much work into it, and I guess you always kind of feel like that. When you're working on a movie, you either hate it 1 second, you think it's going to be the worst piece of shit ever, and then 5 minutes later, you think it's going to be Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it sort of goes back and forth like that while you're working on something. But we were pretty much excited about this movie through the whole process, and I guess it has become influential. I've seen a number of movies, particularly low budget movies, that I can tell are obviously influenced by the Necrophiles. I think it was ahead of its time. I think it still holds up with the shock value and the general sliminess that you see in movies today. As far as the sequel, I was doing, immediately after the Necrophiles, I was making a movie called Anti-Hero, which was very low budget. We had zero money to work with on that. But I think we got some of the equipment we got from Todd Chersland in exchange for shooting. I think I shot one scene for Necrophiles 2, just as a favor. Other than that, I wasn't associated with the movie. And I think he just had me do that so he could attach my name to it. But I think that movie, I've only seen it once, and Necrophiles 2, I think, has like 3 directors' names listed. So that was like a hodgepodge. He had a guy in Olympia who was shooting stuff, and he had a guy down in LA who was shooting stuff. And so this was just sort of a hodgepodge of all kinds of different elements. And as far as I could tell, they just reused the same script, because I saw the film once, and it's got the two cops, Sloan and Manners, just saying the same lines, like they sort of rehashed the same jokes for the second one. So I was personally never really a big fan of that one. I wouldn't mind doing maybe a third one someday, if there's some demand for it. I'm sure Isaac would be down. I still don't think he has a job yet. It's been 20 years. I think he's still unemployed and waiting to play the zombie again. I'll give him a call.